Give him a hand. Thank you very much for being with us. This is fresh water, and you too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Coming from academia myself, and made a step into the C, consultancy, and into B, so ABC, and still being part of the academic world. And in my role in Philips, I'm still looking a lot at cooperation, looking a lot at universities, and for Philips, working together with universities is an important element of creating innovations. And it was great to see that my predecessors, David and Laurent, were able to already bring some of the messages across I would like to bring across. So it will be hopefully a strengthening of the message. Probably I will do something else as well to challenge you a bit and tell you more about the industry, because I hear a lot of things about industry, and it was sometimes it seems like a very mystic area, or what are they doing, and big corporates look like institutes, but are real people there, and yeah, we have ideas and we have ambitions, and we would like to bring them across. So I would like to talk about it and share some of our learnings. So briefly talk about Philips. Philips, you may know it, you may not know it. It's about 25 billion company. We are heavily focusing on healthcare, lighting, and consumer lifestyle. You may know us from televisions and your audio devices, but we have said goodbye to them in the meantime over the last few years, which is a quite drastic change in our portfolio, I must admit. But still heavily focusing on innovation. We spend about 7%, 1.7 billion annually euro on R&D, and we are quite effective also in getting new products to the market. Nice thing of Philips is that we have been investing heavily also in making sure that we are active in growth economies. So especially now the economies in the US and Europe are a little bit slowing down. You see that we are already getting about 1/3 of our revenues coming out of the growth economies, where the growth rates are over 10 and sometimes over 20%. So that helps us to grow as a company. I'm working at Philips Research. Philips Research is one of the few really large private research institutes. We have about 1,500 people. We exist 100 years next year, and we tend to exist another 100 years, so we're ready for the next 100 years. About 1,500 people working worldwide in China and the US, India, and Europe. And yeah, we work a lot with others. We work a lot, and I'll show you in a second. And by the way, we also make a lot of patents. So our people are active, and they have an average of about 1 patent per person per year, which is pretty high. But patents is just one element of what they're doing. The most important thing we do today is to make sure that we have transfers to our businesses in Philips. So we can create new products, new services, new solutions to the market. Of course, they need to be protected, in some cases even better than in other cases, but the most important thing is that those innovations get to the market, ideally as soon as possible, and that's why we talk about end-to-end innovation. We'll not talk about that today. Open innovation and partnerships. For us, open innovation is something which is part of what we do already for quite some time. And I've heard the things like public-private partnerships and the things we are doing all together in Europe. We, as Philips, were one of those companies which were at the brink of getting these public-private partnerships in Europe in place. And we look at 2 ways. We look at inside-out open innovation, so we do things together with others. We do out-licensing, we do venturing, we do spin-offs of ventures. I can talk about it also, but we'll not do that now, maybe in the break if there are questions. We have done something which was pretty peculiar, which is the high-tech campus. And we opened up our innovation campus in Eindhoven, which was quite a shock for most people. So it was the vision to bring other companies into our premises, where the core of our innovation was. And we did about 10 years ago, and it is a massive success. I'm not sure someone has been there, but those people who've been there, it's, yeah, I hope I represent your thoughts and your feelings, but it's a quite exciting place. It's a vibrant place. I know 10 years later, about 8,000 people working, about 100 companies, or a little bit over 100 companies at this moment, including competitors of us, including many startups, including services organizations, including also scientists, academics. So it's a vibrant place. I can invite you to be there and to come over there. And the other thing is getting things from the outside in, and that's what we call outside in open innovation. And for us, working with universities is one element of that. It's one element, as I mentioned. Public-private programs is another element. We work together with suppliers, we work together with startups, we work together with large companies, but we also do a lot with intermediaries. Companies like Innocentive, Nine Sigma, who can help us to solve problems. If we have a specific question, we can work with them, and they put them to their network of tens of thousands potential people who could answer that question. And we get answers from that, and sometimes it's a great answer, and sometimes not, but that's part of the deal, I guess. Especially also, yeah, in working in open innovation, you're still looking at how to make it work and when is which form of open innovation most effective. And sometimes that's working with universities. Just to go a little bit deeper, so for us as Philips Research, open innovation is integral part of our strategy. So despite the fact that we have 1,500 people, excellent researchers, working globally on new innovations for Philips, we have said we want open innovation to be part of a natural way of working. And you can imagine there are some challenges. When you say that to your own people and stimulate them to continuously look outside and work together with other companies, with universities, etc., that sometimes they say, but yeah, why? Because you hired all of us, 1,500 great people, and I love to work with Philips to create business innovations relevant for our company, and you still tell me to go outside. So do you question whether I'm good enough, yes or no? So the not invented here is also still with some people in place. But we help them to get rid of that. Because what we have learned as well over time is it's hardly possible, and so far we haven't seen it yet, that we find something in the outside world, whether at the university, a small company, big company, whatever, we take that and bring it immediately as a product for Philips to our customers. We haven't seen it yet, but we're still learning every day, so we may find it. So what is much more likely to happen is that we see something very interesting, which helps us to speed up the innovation process. We bring it into Philips, we do something with it, with our competences, because we understand our customers, we understand the needs of our customers, and we understand the application. And by the way, we should also sometimes create IP, strengthen the IP around it, to make sure that we have a sustainable competitive advantage. If we would be able to buy something somewhere or define it at the university, sell it immediately to our customers, everybody can do that. So there's no sustainable competitive advantage. So for us, it's finding something out there, combine it with what we are good at, our internal strengths, and then bring innovations to the market. And by the way, so open innovation itself for us is just a means to an end. But it's a mindset. It's not a process. It's not a strategy. It's a mindset. And of course, you have to do many things to make sure that that mindset gets into the mind of our people. And I think we make a lot of progress on that. And we work with a lot of partners. We have over 250 relationships with universities, institutes, companies, whatever. And if your logo is not here, might be just by accident, because I could not put all 250 on this one, or we might not have a relationship. That could be as well. And it could be for the good or for the bad reasons. So we cooperate with many partners, but not all partnerships are the same. So I saw your picture, Laura, I saw your story about the strategic partnerships. There are at least 3, to make it simple, 3 different types of partnerships. And all 3 are good. There's no better one. It really depends on what you want to do. So we have many relationships with universities. Let me focus on the universities for a moment. Where we have a customer-supplier relationship. We have a question, we have a problem, we ask a university to work on that, to do contract research. We pay for that, we get an answer. Great. Hopefully we are both happy after we have that answer, but if we're not happy, we probably will not come back next time. That's fair. But that's a typical relationship. And we have many of those. And those are, I think, very good. That can also happen with IP. TTO of a university has a certain patent or IP, and then we buy it. We're happy, you're happy, that's great. For some of those relationships, they move into a little bit more. It's much more working together on a joint topic. A joint program on a specific topic. And why do we do that? Because that university has the best people in the world, at least what we think, on a certain topic. And then we work together, we put our people in that project, people from the university, we work together and create a win-win, mainly topic-wise, content-wise. And we have more than 200 of these. And then there are a handful, where we say, hey, but yes, you're a partner, but we can do more if we would team up more. And we will believe, if you will believe that as well, that if we team up, that we can get much more results, much more output out of our relationship. Instead of doing everything ad hoc and have maybe 10 or 20 of those partnership relations, we can do much more together. We probably could do things like, let's team up towards Europe. If we have an idea for a public FP7 or Horizon 2020 program, let's team up, the 2 of us first, before we go to 20 other universities. Maybe we can help you to make sure that your students get the right education, so they are more attractive for us if they graduate to become an employee of Philips. For instance, you can think about PhDs. We could sponsor PhDs, or maybe we have part-time professors. And by the way, for those strategic partners, and we are creating them at this moment, there's also a lot of effectiveness in the relationship. So you can imagine that negotiating a partnership with the university about a specific program can be cumbersome. It can be cumbersome because of Philips, because we have certain demands and we want to have a certain focus, or we start from scratch, or our legal people have no time, whatever. And it can be cumbersome because of the university. And it can also be cumbersome because we just meet each other for the first time, and then it takes ages before we speak the same language and understand what we want. And it sometimes can also be that in these situations, universities might have a too idealistic feeling or impression about the value of IP, especially their own IP. And that's something I think we encounter quite a lot as a company, that we meet people of universities and also TTOs which have a target to create as much value as possible, which is different than what you mentioned, luckily, to get as much as possible out of IP. And I think that sometimes hampers this discussion, because sometimes the people don't realize what still needs to be done to get IP to something which is really valuable. What kind of investments companies like Philips need to do before something like an idea is made into a product, is made into something which is being sold on the market, which is being brought to something which is being sold very successfully on the market. Many, many steps in between with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of investments, and still valuable IP is there. And so we also would love to reward that. And then that's much easier with the strategic partners, because we work together, we know what is important from both sides, and we look at the total package of the relationship, not just the money for one patent or potential patent. And if you think about the whole relationship, then you can think about ideas, knowledge, people, IP, but also trial data, work together on certain trials or test bedding, those kind of things. Let me still have a few minutes here? 4 minutes, that's great. I need 5, so. One thing we also do is we try to find novel ways of working with universities. And it's not happening with you, but black and white, we sometimes had this situation that if we ask a university to do something, they do something. And if we're not careful, the timelines are never met. And there is hardly any pressure to deliver on an output, and much more on yeah, I did my best. It's not happening with you, I agree. So, also because of us, because we did not ask the question carefully enough. So what we did, and we learned for ourselves, and we said, we want to see whether we can get much more output out of a relationship. And we put something very challenging. So we had last year a big innovation challenge, a topic where our people said it's impossible. It's impossible to solve that. And that question was, can we replace rare earth material in one of our devices? And so we have in our company, I will not share which device, but you can imagine, we have devices where rare earth material is included, and some of them have a lot of rare earth material, and we all know that the price of rare earth material is predictable in a way that it goes always uphill instead of downhill. And also there might be situations that the ones who have and who own the rare earth might decide not to give you the rare earth at the moment that we want it. So we said that's not a nice situation. Is there a way that we can replace rare earth in our equipment? And our people said, and they worked 25 years, experts in the field said, impossible. And by the way, they showed statistics, they showed literature, and they said, all new materials which can replace this are more rare. So that's the path to go. And then we said, okay, let's try. So we worked with a very small company which helped us to organize this. And we looked at universities and we challenged a number of universities. In the end, we came to 4 teams of universities. And they were working together with us in a contest. They were competing against each other to win a prize. And they were forced or stimulated, but by the setup also forced, to collaborate with each other and with us to come with a solution. And we selected teams which had completely different backgrounds. So one of them knew exactly everything about that equipment. The other one knew nothing about that equipment, but knew everything about materials. And the other one knew nothing about equipment, nothing about materials, but they were in the semiconductor world and some other. And those, in 6 months, they were working together, they were competing, and we had some sessions in between. And we opened up our kimono on day one and said, this is what we all tried, and that we never did before, to be honest. This is what we all tried, and this is why it works and why it doesn't work. 6 months later, we had 3 concepts which were possible solutions, and 2 of them were without rare earth. 6 months, small investment for a company, and the prize they could win was 20,000 euro. And of course, they get payment for all the work they did in the 6 months. Very exciting. And so we were very happy to have done that. And this created also the feeling that, hey, there are different ways to work with universities in more entrepreneurial ways to stimulate them to work together, to compete, but also to create results and have a deadline and make sure that they are met. And what happened is that there was a lot of enthusiasm in those groups where people were coming together and worked day and night to just try to win this game. And I think that's a nice example, and we're looking for more. And that's what I wanted to share today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not working yet. Also, I appreciate very much that you have been addressing the IP question, that you are not looking for IP and if from universities, and if that there is everything else coming with it, but just IP. So it's, I still believe strongly that we as universities are still following not exactly the right way of trying to commercialize.
Oh, I think we have very good examples of universities who do it in the way where we can work easily with them.
Some examples, yeah.
We're getting more and more.
I'm sure there are many, many questions. I can allow maybe 2. We are limited of time. I would love to follow your presentation for much longer, but we have a full day.
If you change the program, I can continue. Yeah. That's no problem.
I'm very sure you could.
Thank you. Rivitskis, Riga Technical University. My question is general to big international companies and university cooperation. It's not just for Philips, but in general. In case your board of owners is deciding not more do business in Europe, for example, but previously we created special center for cooperation in university with big international company, and how we can do this in long term, and previous speaker talked about trust and relations with industry, but what to do with big international companies? They are doing actually basically for their own business, and they don't care about small universities in small countries. How can be this cooperation? Thank you.
May I have a second question, and then you may answer to the 2 questions, please, just up there.
Sasha Pater from Northwestern University in Chicago. Will you be having another contest? What will be the question, and when is the deadline?
I like to answer the second one first. Yes, we will do new contests, but the question is still pending because it's so important we have learned to ask the right question. Because you should realize that for us it's of course money-wise maybe not a big investment, but time-wise and management time-wise as well, it's not so easy to do that every week or every year, and the challenge must fit. So if it's a simpler one, which you could also ask one professor or team to solve, we should not abuse this more novel approach. The challenge will also be to find universities and teams which are willing to work with us. And there I must admit that if teams or universities are really strict on policies around IP, and they want to have lengthy negotiations of 1 year or more, then we will not meet the deadline. But more to come. Your question, I can only speak about Philips. Let me not do as if I can talk about all companies. As I mentioned, there are, for us as a company, 3 models of working with universities and with professors. And all 3 models are fine for us. And it's not likely that if there's a very small country where we have no researchers close by, that we set up a very, very long-term strategic relationship with them. I think that's fair to say. But in a very small country like the Netherlands, we, at least as our company, are creating at least one of those strategic partnerships, and maybe even more than one. So that's happening. And for the other ones in those countries where we can also really look at excellent people on a certain topic where we want to work with them. So you see different kind of relationships also coming to that. And so also looking at the contest I show, there were competitors, not competitors, the universities which were willing to contribute to that were from Estonia, is it called? Estonia, Poland, Sweden. So it's also different kind of countries than you typically think of. So I'm not so pessimistic on that.
Good sentence for the for the final statement. Thank you to all of you by contributing, asking questions. Especially thank you to the 3 speakers. Can I ask you please on stage back again? You please give the 3 speakers of this morning a hand.